What would you advise Sony to do right now?
Well, I think the first consideration is less of a legal one and a business consideration, and figuring out a way to recoup the investment. And I believe there's been some talk about releasing the movie video on demand and trying to find a way to recoup partially that investment. On the other end of this, Sony's going to want to look to people like Mr. Lieberman to help them try to ascertain the identity of the hackers and figure out who's responsible for this, including whether there are any potential former insiders that may have been involved. On the legal side, they're already facing a couple of lawsuits with respect to the disclosure of the information, so certainly they're going to have to give due consideration to those claims and probably some more.
Phil Lieberman, let's say that you get a call from the head of Sony right after this program. What do you tell them to do about their systems?
So it's a great question, Pimm. We're actually talking to Sony at this point in time, so it's kind of a coincidence. We actually do secure the other studios. The issue really has to do with the nature of how well they're handling passwords and how well they're handling accounts within their environment. They had a pretty major breach, which pretty much went across everything that they own.
Phil Lieberman, did Sony follow the correct protocols when it comes to unveiling and releasing the information related to the hack attack?
So, there's really no protocols to this. This is really an unprecedented type of an attack. The escalation that it took yesterday with regard to actually threatening patrons and threatening exhibitors of the movie is really without precedent at all. If you go back and take a look at some of the ransomware attacks that involved money and extortion, nobody has ever threatened physical violence as an outcome. So this one's different. This one doesn't really follow any other pattern that we've seen before.
Devin McRae, is it possible that Sony has insurance that would cover, let's say, the $44 million that they spent to create the film?
It's possible. There are insurance coverage for productions, and it's all going to depend on the language of the policy that they have.
Phil Lieberman, what would you suggest to the actors and to all the professionals involved in making this movie about the future of their online life?
Well, you've certainly seen the attacks on the celebrities with regard to their cell phones and their information getting compromised. I do believe there was some disclosure with regard to Sony having some cyber security insurance already that should cover part of it. In addition to that, their auditors themselves would probably face some of the liability in this. So consequently, the outcome of discovery with the recent lawsuits probably going to surface the amount of disclosure that their auditors provided them as to how good a job they were actually doing with security and how compliant they were with industry standards.
Devin, is there anything that the individuals affected by this attack can now do when it comes to potential personal liability?
Well, certainly the individuals that have been harmed by this may be looking to for the results of the audits with respect to Sony's handling of the information. Some of them may be looking to Sony to sue them for not exercising reasonable standards of care in protecting their information, and possibly their financial interests in the movie.
Phil, the theater exhibitors, AMC, Regal, they've decided, of course, not to show the movie. Are they giving in to a form of online terrorism?
So, it's an interesting discussion we've had today with a lot of different entities regarding this. And the problem we have in the U.S. legal system is that if there is a public threat to life and property, and one of the exhibitors puts on the event or puts on the film, and something bad happens, even if it wasn't terrorism, they really can be facing some pretty serious liability. So consequently, you're probably figuring that it's too hot of a potato to be holding on to. There's better things to do.
Devin, what does this mean for other movie studios as well as Sony when they decide to make future pictures that might annoy some of the subjects?
Well, I think that's a major concern, is whether this is going to chill creative expression, and whether now you're going to have studios deciding that they're just not going to make movies because they're concerned somebody's going to be upset by it.
Phil Lieberman, last point to you. Executives at Sony, are they going to have to change their profile, not only online, but how they deal with individuals as a result of everybody learning their personal email comments?
So, there's a lesson to be learned on this, which has to do really with security on the internet. And that is essentially that nobody is really all that secure that your email, your stored documents, your pictures, pretty much everything is really in play. If you really want to be protected, you don't put it online. The executives are going to need to change their profiles, certainly, but there's even a bigger question about CEOs and the nature of what their role is in terms of IT security. So beyond just the financials, there's a bigger question, I think, that needs to be asked as to whose job it is to actually provide security at the studios. And in the broader question with regard to other corporations, what's the responsibility of the CEO in general security?